It is Talking Bollocks with me, your host, Howard H. Smith. He of Acid Rain, he of stand-up comedy, Keith Platt. You can visit me at keithplatt.co.uk. Does anybody bother with websites anymore? And all the social media you like, as well as the social media for this here goddamn podcast. Or Bollocast, if you will. Get involved. There's a conversation to be had. I am on Facebook, Twitter. Find me. I'm on Instagram as well, if you want to find me on there. Howard, H-O-W, then the digit 1, and then A-R-D. It's a private account, so please do ask, and I shall allow. So there you go. It's nice. It is lovely to be back in your ears. Thank you for tuning in. Let's hope there's lots of tangents. That's right, I'm being ironic. I'm mentioning all of the things that usually occur in an episode of Talking Bollocks, or have done over the years. But let's face it, just recently, everything has been a little different. It's been a little weird. I've been feeling the impact from an urban nature perspective. So basically, where I am in London, it's normally shed loads of foxes, shed loads of squirrels, and all the usual. Well, basically, I've seen one fox in about the last 3 months, and that looked like it was about to drop down dead there and then. I have, one fox, right? No seagulls. The squirrels seem to have vanished. But what is happening, the knock-on effect is, there are parakeets in London. I know what you're thinking, but no, it's true. Parakeets. Look it up. No one knows where they came from. And basically, they've started feeding off my bird feeder on my balcony. Now, I've never even seen one of these birds anywhere near my balcony before. And they're flock birds, which means, you know, one goes and finds food, then they all eat it. But I've actually had them fighting each other, as well as pigeons joining in and magpies. Basically, these birds are getting hungry because there just isn't the volume of crap lying around that we normally leave kicking about all over the place that these things thrive on. And so yeah, they've all got they're all doing different things for food. But it is actually proven to be quite entertaining because I just get to watch bright green parakeets going to war on my balcony. So there you go. Now you see, I've shared that with you. That's the first 3 minutes of the podcast. Now, if this is your first time listening, you're probably thinking, fucking hell, how's this been going for 5 years? And I wouldn't blame you. But, you know, I'm just having a general chit-chat with you all. Because, you know, they are strange times. And I'm got to be honest, I'm fucking bouncing off the walls at the moment. I really need a change of scene or something. Although one of my regular gigs, which is back up and running, not a comedy show, but it is a regular kind of event of sorts, but again massively reduced. And I guess this moves into the topic of what has been happening in the world of metal since last we spoke. Look, I just want to say to you guys, if you're in the UK and you have a ticket for an event that is this year, be well and truly prepared to either have it rescheduled till 2021, or when it gets closer, find out that you're either not going or you're one of the lucky people that are. Because there seems to be a number of smallish little events, little gigs, festivals, things like that, announcing that they're going ahead, despite the fact that they seem to be well aware that it might not. And it's really weird as well, because if somebody is advertising the event this year in the UK, at the moment, they don't know how many tickets to sell. Or rather, they should have a very limited number of tickets to sell, because they should be selling on the basis that they can only allow the percentage that would be allowed in right now if they opened. But some of these places are actually closed. They're not open at all. So how would they know what volume of tickets to sell for an event in November or end of October? It's insane. So anyway, look, all I'm saying is, I'm not taking anybody's joy away. I'm not trying to be the thief of joy. And I'm not being a downer. I'm just saying be prepared, okay? Be prepared for it to not happen. That is all I am saying. Had some very interesting conversations with people this week behind various scenes. There's so much going on that I wish I could tell you, but I can't. It's an interesting place out there at the moment. But hey, you knew all that, didn't you? Let's get on with some more fucking metal news, shall we? Good news. More violence. New violence. Are you fucking kidding? Hey? Now that is something to be celebrated. Yeah, last album, 93. This time we're getting one fucking... we're not getting an album, but we are getting an EP. We are getting 5 new tracks and a cover version, and it's done as far as I'm aware. What more do you... Well, actually, it's not done. 3 of them are. In fact, over to Phil Demmel, friend of the podcast. We've got 3 originals done, he said. We have a cover song that we were working on to play at a local live show, and that got cancelled. I wanted to have some content, so I said, let's just go in and record this song, do a live video, just have something to kind of fill the void. So there's a cover version coming. There'll be 5 originals, and then the cover tune is going to be like an added B-side. I know what we're going to be doing material-wise or product-wise, but there'll be 6 songs with the cover. So 6 songs. Now, you see, my problem with EPs is that a bit like the Prong EP that came out, I don't know if it was early this year or end of last, is the thing is, as you all know, I love Prong, but it's 2 new tracks, and then some remixes and a live track. But the physical, the CD, is 10 quid. And I'm not paying 10 quid for what is basically 2 songs. And this is my issue with any kind of EP. Don't get me wrong. I mean, if Violence bring out an EP and it's on CD and it's 10 quid, I'll be buying it. But the point I'm making is that you're often paying the same as you would for a full album. And also, I just think songs kind of get forgotten on EP. They get forgotten. They don't got forgotten. God Forgotten. Hello, my name is God Forgotten. I sing in Swedish death metal band. I hope you like the next song. It is called My Massa. I've got no idea what that was about. So anyway, so the point I'm making is, and I don't know if you feel like this, I'm just saying it's the way I feel, and because it's my podcast, and if it's not the way you feel, then get yourself a podcast and tell everybody how you feel. But yeah, there's just something about EPs that just doesn't do it for me. And so anyway, whether or not we're getting an album, and it does look that way, because it does look like we're going to get an album further down the line. So it's cool to have a placeholder. In fact, what am I fucking moaning about? What actually am I? I guess I'm moaning. I'm moaning from that Prong EP point of view, which was fucking a lot of money for not a lot of music. And so yeah, I guess I'm moaning about that. And that's just it's just I don't know. As a fan, I find it just a bit frustrating, I guess. It's almost like you're getting the tip, but you're getting teased. And do you know what? I definitely think that is it. I do think that is it. So it's my issue. So I need to shut the fuck up and sort it out. In the meantime, watch Static X perform at Wisconsin Festival, once named Herd Immunity Fest. Yeah, Herd Immunity Fest was then received loads of crap for having non-socially distanced gig. I mean, how the fuck can you even have a gig right now? How is that fucking possible? If you're in a country that has laws, right? How are you able to do that? Because basically, over here, some venues are allowed to open, yeah, and some venues aren't. And some live events can go ahead and some can't. But you have to have the appropriate fucking clearance for health and safety and everybody else. So how the fuck did this go ahead? Absolutely And why would you go and see Static X? In a fucking, in the middle of a pandemic or not? Why Static X? There's so many bands you could go and see. Why? And it's not Static X. It's Static X with some weird fucking tribute frontman with a wig on. And if all of this sounds a bit mental and you're not aware of what is going on with Static X at the moment, well, please do check it out, because it's an ongoing running story, which just gets fucking weirder. Basically, a guy who wears a Wayne Static mask and a Wayne Static wig whilst playing with ex-members of Static X. I know. That is just too much, isn't it? It's just too fucking much. It really fucking is. Anyway, I've given it way too much airtime. Next up, what are we talking about? We're talking about Dave Mustaine. Yeah, Dave, the man is just a constant flow of news stories that just keep on giving. He really is. He's just a great news source. What's Dave been up to? I haven't got anything to talk about on the podcast. Let's see what Dave's been up to. Well, here's what Dave has been up to. Dave has been writing a book. He likes to do that, doesn't he? We all know, as we've read Dave Mustaine, a heavy metal biography. Well, coming soon is Rust in Peace, the inside story of the Megadeth masterpiece. That's right, he's never one to hold back from calling his own work a masterpiece, as we know. Book synopsis. Rust in Peace, the inside story of the Megadeth masterpiece, details the making of Megadeth's iconic record Rust in Peace, which was released in 1990, an incredible time of flux and creativity in the world of rock. Relayed by Mustaine, the book covers, relayed, not written, notice, relayed by Mustaine, the book covers the process for hiring the band and supporting cast, of trying to handle the ensuing success and ultimately the pressure of fame and fortune which caused the band to finally break up. In short, it's a true story of groundbreaking anti-pop that was moving toward the mainstream, or the mainstream was moving toward the band, at a time of great cultural change, power, ego, drugs and other vices that went hand in hand with rock and roll circa the late 80s, early 90s. Little did Mustaine know that the birth pangs of the record were nothing compared to the ongoing pain and torment that would surround it. Alcohol, drugs, sex, money, power, property, prestige, the lies the band was told by the industry, and the lies they told each other were just beginning. And much like rust in real life, these factors would ultimately eat away at the band's bond until only the music survived. Well, if the book is anything to go on from that little pile of shit. To be fair, that sounds like the Hollywood pitch of this book. Really, it really does. It does make it sound like, I love the way they've managed to get everything in there. What was going on in the 80s and mainstream culture. And the weird thing is, if you've read Mustaine's book, the heavy metal memoir, if you've read that, then you know that Dave has a tendency to take something that Megadeth did that was really, really fucking good and claim that it was even better. So just in there, Rust in Peace, just straight out the bat, masterpiece. Now I wouldn't be comfortable with somebody calling anything I've done a masterpiece. And I know they're not about to, so just calm your fucking horses, alright? I'm just saying that, I know this is all just schlep, written, but in fact, again, why am I even complaining? I'm about to moan about Dave, and it's not about Dave, is it? It's about selling books. That's what this is all about. It's not about Dave wanting to be known as a fucking genius and a mastermind, because in his head, that's how he's known anyway, so it doesn't matter. But ultimately, what the fuck am I moaning about? If the guy's taken time to actually write a book about Rust in Peace, do you know what? I'm gonna fucking buy it. That's for fucking sure. And certainly, if lockdown is anything like still around by the time that comes out, I will definitely be buying that fucking book without a doubt. You can guarantee it. That's the kind of thing that I remember that album coming out and just thinking, fucking hell, this is like serious. It is a phenomenal record. I was listening to it the other day, and it doesn't matter what version you listen to, whether you listen to the original, the remaster, the remix, whatever. You're just in for a treat, aren't you? What a classic album. And I must be mellowing, because there's a story about Dave there, and I'm not moaning about it. Okay, here's a story about another album that's being celebrated, and that is Pantera launches 30th anniversary of Cowboys from Hell. Oh, are they, Howard? That sounds interesting, doesn't it just? What are they releasing? Well, let's have a look, shall we? It's going to it's everything. It's going to be a compendium. It's going to be a huge reissue. Okay? And it was released on the 24th of July in 1990. So just over 30. In fact, wow, 30 years ago and 5 days when I'm recording this. So that is pretty fucking amazing, isn't it? So that's coming out. You are going to have all sorts of shit on it, and wonderful and great, and, can't wait for that. However, Pantera announced 20th anniversary edition of Reinventing the Steel, which is arriving in September. Now, hands up, everyone listening, I don't care where you are. If you're in the supermarket, if you're in work, if you're in bed, if you're driving, wherever you are, I'm asking now, okay? Hands up who will be getting the Reinventing the Steel reissue. And there you go, you see, none of you put your hands up. That's right. Do we really need a 20th anniversary edition of Pantera's probably most middle-of-the-road, dull album, which is their last, and it sounds like it? Fucking hell. I'm really, really not getting involved in the hysteria of the 20th anniversary of the re-release of Reinventing the Steel. It wasn't. It was Uninventing Pantera is what it should have been called. Good night. This is the end. We have had enough. This is our final album. I mean, yeah, really, no. That is not a 20-year celebration album. Anyway, I'll tell you what is a celebration. A celebration is getting the one and only, the legendary Terry Butler on the podcast. Now, Terry and I had a conversation a little while ago. I was lucky enough to grab some time with him, ask him some questions, and have a general chit-chat with one of, if not the, legendary death metal bassist. And this is myself and Terry Butler having a chat just the other week.
Hello?
Hello there, Terry.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Doing good.
Excellent. How's the, I'm afraid, the way all interviews start at the moment, how's lockdown treating you?
Lockdown's been okay. I mean, I've been dealing with it the best I can. But all this other stuff is starting to really worry me.
Yeah, that's, yeah, I mean, I was supposed to be doing an interview last night with somebody in LA, and they said, look, can we rearrange, because it's just a bit crazy around here at the moment.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's just what happened to that guy is horrible, but now people, they aren't even connected to any of that, are just creating problems. It's a lot of political stuff going on.
Yeah, it is. It's it's a shame, especially on top of everything else that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2020 hasn't been a very good year so far.
That's understatement of the year. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, look, thanks for doing this. I know my friends at Overkill sort of reached out. So I sing in a UK thrash band, Acid Rain, have done since back in the late 80s, and took a break.
Awesome.
I've done stand-up comedy for 25 years as in between stints in a band. So
oh yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. No, it's I tell you what, man, that whole just pick up and go thing is amazing. It really is.
Yeah.
You get a call from an agent, and it's just like, do you want to do this gig? Where is it? When is it? How much is it? Yes. That's
it's exciting and scary all at the same time.
Well, yeah, you know, bigger the risk, bigger the reward. But what I've genuinely found now, after having been a few years back in a band, and is that as much as I love stand up, things are better enjoyed with other people than on your own. So,
yeah, definitely.
You know, so basically, when you do stand up, there is, you know, there's nobody that there's no one to relate to. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I mean, if you're hanging out in the backstage room, you're by yourself.
Yeah. Or you come off stage, you've had an amazing gig, and you've got other comedians in there who've got to follow that, who do not want to fucking hear it. You know, so it's very strange, but still a buzz. And man, so where are we with, or where are you with Massacre and Obituary at the moment? In which, because I would imagine, in my tiny little brain, is telling me that possibly both bands are due an album fairly soon. I mean, obviously, COVID-19's kicked in. Whereabouts are you? Whereabouts are you in your cycle with with those things?
Well, unfortunately, in Massacre, we kind of broke up in 2015.
Oh, my apologies.
No, it's okay. I know there's a version going now, but, you know, Rick and I, to rewind a hair, Rick and I got it going again in 2011 and quickly got a record deal with Century Media.
Yeah.
And everything was going great. We put a killer record out. We did a tour with Death to All. Mm-hmm. We had another tour lined up in Europe with Death to All. But, you know, Rick and the drummer, Mikey, had another agenda, and they just pretty much destroyed everything after the first tour we did, and the band broke up. But, you know, picking up the pieces, falling out of the ashes of that, Cam came through, picking the carcass, and basically wants Massacre going again. And I don't care. To each his own. I got so much going on right now that, you know, that's not even on my radar, basically.
Oh,
it's
man.
Unfortunate because we put a killer record out, Back from Beyond. But, you know, it just fell apart. But I'm so busy with Obituary that, you know, and speaking of Obituary, this COVID break, you know, we're kind of throwing some riffs around, and I think out of this, there will be an album developing out of this break we have, obviously, because there's nothing really else to do but write riffs.
Excellent.
And, we're due for a record anyhow. It's time. So hopefully, through all this, we can put an album together and get it recorded and have it out, you know, in 2021. So.
Well, look, that's awesome. That's an all-encompassing answer. And not at one point did you actually point out what an arsehole I was for forgetting about all of the Massacre fallout and everything else. So thanks for that. You let me off the hook there. I fucking remember that as well. And do you know what? It's because, I mean, for me, you play on two of the greatest death metal albums of all time, which is Leprosy and Spiritual Healing. And we were on the same label back then. In fact, we were supposed to tour with Death, or a version of Death, or whatever. And I remember back then talking to people at the label, and it was the label manager, Andy Black. I don't know if you ever met him. And he was like, if we could just get them to fucking tour, if we get Chuck out of fucking America, we could fucking sell shitloads of records.
Yeah, I know, man. We before our first tour that we did in '89 for Leprosy, we had several other tours lined up in Europe, and it just never developed. But the first tour we did for Leprosy, we only played about half the shows, and you know, Chuck wanted to come home. Kind of, we were all kind of not used to going to Europe, but we were willing to stick it out. And the promoter, the booking agent, didn't really get us what he told us he was going to get us. So we were kind of roughing it. But yeah, so I mean, at least we did half the shows. Came back and sometime I went back for the spiritual healing tour. Unfortunately, it was without Chuck, but
yeah, that is pretty. That's pretty much legendary over here.
Yeah,
I mean,
it was a ballsy move, but we were kids, kind of, and we just didn't know what to do. You know, we had signed all kind of contracts. It was a 9-week tour with Creator. They had a whole crew. I mean, you know, we're talking not only the band, but you had about 10 crew members, everyone from a sound man to a lighting guy to a merchandise dude. And canceling that tour, all these people are going to be out of work for 9 weeks, and that's pretty shitty. So we just got together and did it, you know. And in hindsight, I don't know if that was the best thing to do, but we thought it was the best thing to do when we were 21, 22, you know, and that's that.
Yeah, but I think, look, ultimately, you did it, and I mean, like I said, it's actually spoken of sort of quite fondly over here, because it was such. It's you know, it's still kind of, you know, a rare event. You know, I saw Chuck without Death. Sorry, I saw Death without Chuck. You know, it's kind of like it's pretty fucked up. But I mean. Those were incredible times, and you've played on a total. Unless I've missed any out, is it 21 albums so far in your career? I
think that about that. I mean, I've been really fortunate. Obviously, you know, I recorded albums with Death, recorded albums with Obituary, with Massacre, with 6 Feet Under. I mean, I've been in some really cool bands. I've been pretty fortunate. So, you know, I can hang my hat on that at the end of the day, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, that tells me two things, and that's one, that you are a fucking nailed down bass player, and two, that you're a decent guy, because otherwise word gets out and you don't get in any bands.
Yeah. Well, you know.
I mean, look, it's just the way. Ultimately, you know. You are who you are, and sometimes it's you know, and sometimes it's a great fit. And
I just try. You know, I just try to be honest, and I'm a team player, and you know, I just love playing music, and playing live, and all that kind of works together. So.
And how were the Slayer shows? I saw you guys at Wembley.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean. You know, not only do we get to see Slayer for like 25 shows, but just being accepted by their crowd. I mean, you know, by the time doors opened and by the time we went on stage, the place was at least 75% full, and it was great. And they were super cool. Their crew was amazing. I mean, we know most of their crew anyhow. We knew most of the crew from all the bands, but all the bands accepted us. All the bands were cool. We got along great. You know, we're in Obituary. You know, I couldn't be in a better band. All the dudes we're all on the same page, all striving for the same thing. And, you know, it was an amazing time. It was a bucket list thing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But what a thing to come along as well at this stage of your career. Is like, right, okay, arena tour. Now this I did not expect.
Yeah, I know. It's like, okay, I've been doing this for 35 years, and finally I got to play in some arenas.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody had said to you, you know, what's on your bucket list, and you just said an arena tour, and they'd be like, well, you're going to have to join another fucking band for that. And you've done it.
Definitely.
That's
yeah. So, I mean, I can die happy now as far as my musician life is, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed about your Wikipedia page is really just kind of functional. There's you know, usually there is stuff there about people's lives and stuff like that.
I know. Wikipedia is weird to me because some, you know, Joe Schmo that hates you can go on there and rearrange your information.
Yeah.
So I should go on there and beef it up, so to speak, some, but I just haven't, you know.
Well, I was gonna ask if it was just because you were sort of more of a private person, because ultimately on there it's very sort of instructional. You know, the bands you've been in, the years, the albums, etc.
Yeah.
The only bit about you is really that it says that you're married with 3 children, whether or not that is even correct. And that's it.
Yeah. I got 3 children. I got 5 grandkids.
Wow.
Yeah,
those kids been busy.
Yeah, I definitely should go on there and kind of, get it a little more up to date for sure.
Are you doing anything? So, what do you do? What do you do outside of Obituary?
Just kind of a lot of home life stuff. My grandkids are living with us, so full time helping them out, and just I got like a big property here, and I like to be out in the yard a lot, planting things and growing vegetables and just chilling out and enjoying life. Right. I like a lot of sports, watch a lot of sports, but right now that's on hold because of the virus, obviously. But
yeah, man.
Hopefully that will get back into gear.
Well, it should do. It should do eventually. I mean, we hope.
Yeah.
But yeah, exactly. So do you get much time to sort of do you get much time to sort of like play music or or practice or anything like that at home, or is it pretty much just kind of family life?
Yeah, I have time here and there to definitely sit down and noodle around and stuff. I'm always listening to music in general itself, but there is time to practice and to write some stuff here and there. Yeah.
So what kind of music do you listen to when out of personal choice?
I'm a child of the 70s, so I like a lot of 70s hard rock, UFO, Thin Lizzy's my favorite band.
Right.
UFO, Uriah Heep, Scorpions, but I love all the 80s metal and a lot of stuff like that, like Merciful Fate,
Right, okay.
Accept, Slayer, Metal Church, Venom. The new wave of British heavy metal is one of my favorite genres. Just, everything I grew up listening to and like, I still do. Just because I'm older doesn't mean I have to not like what I grew up on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm kind of stuck in that area a lot. I mean, there's a few bands once in a while I hear that I'm like, oh, that sounds kind of cool and new and fresh. I like that. But generally, I just still listen to what I grew up on.
So,
so how we're always playing music.
Sorry,
always playing music backstage. No, I'm sorry. We're always playing music backstage, and I'm kind of the DJ. We're always playing all kinds of cool shit all the time. So.
Right, okay. It's left to you.
Yeah.
So how does I'm thinking back to when you were a kid and you were first your first forays into music with Death in the Florida scene.
Yeah.
Were you all guys who'd got together who liked those bands and were influenced by those bands and just kind of took it to another level, or were you listening to kind of like more sort of underground stuff at the time?
Well, we were fortunate. I mean, the school I went to, there was about 5 or 6 of us that kind of all liked the underground stuff, and we liked the other stuff too, like Iron Maiden and Scorpions, the more commercial side of it, but we were totally in the underground world, and we got into that. We had a killer record store in our town here, Brandon, Florida.
Oh, and man. We had that makes all the difference, doesn't it? That makes when you think how important now in the way your life has turned out, how important that just single record shop was.
Of course, because you go in there and the guy, hey, what's up,
Yeah.
And, hey, we got some new records in, and a lot of times back then he would play it and let you hear what it is, or sometimes you just bought it because it looked killer. It was a killer-looking album cover.
Yeah.
But like some of the bands around here that started too were like Nasty Savage and Sabotage. They were like huge influences on us when we were 14 and 15.
Right.
We would go see them them play, and we wanted to be like them.
Right. So actual physical like live shows and like idols right in your face.
Yeah, and we were all into Slayer and Venom. Slayer was just starting, so we wanted to be like that. But, it's an evolution. You want to go faster and be heavier. So So that's kind of how the death metal around here started, you know, and a bunch of us that were at those shows would get together and form bands, and that's how Executioner, that's how Death, Massacre, Morbid Angel, all these bands formed, was going to these shows and wanting to be like that band, you know, and you know, so, kind of seeds were planted at that time, and they sprouted, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's incredible that, you know, the thrash scene had the Bay Area, death metal had Florida, and it's just like wow, right, okay, you know, for a state that is known as having a high percentage of old people living there, I guess that's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. I mean, you must have been asked this 1,000 times, and I'm sorry, but I've got to ask. I mean, why Florida? Any idea why Florida, or is it just purely the fact that that's where all you kids just happen to be based, and that's what happened?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. You know, the old people that you spoke of, they live kind of like on some of the coastal areas and down in Miami and stuff, but like in the interior, they stayed a little bit. We're true Florida crackers, and you know, we just, a bunch of kids, maybe it was the sun, all the hot sun, humidity, and the mosquitoes and alligators just formed us into wanting to play brutal music, I guess.
Right, okay. And so when
that's you know, that's all I can tell you. Just that, and listening to the other bands and wanting to be in a band myself, just kind of, that was the recipe.
So the band that went on to become Death, was that something that you saw live as a fan first, or were you kind of more involved in kind of just meeting up and getting on with it?
It's funny. Mantis opened for Nancy Savage at a place here called Ruby's, and I missed that show, but the following show, so a few months later, Chuck was walking around, and he had a bag full of Mantis demos. And I bought one from him, talked to him, and that's how I met him in '85.
Right.
Yeah, and then, I mean, right around that time was when they broke up and then reformed a few months later as Death.
And you know what? I was walking around 2 years later. I was walking around doing exactly the same thing in my town, and that's how I met. You know, that's how I met people who eventually became band members. It's insane when you look back on it. When you just think like, wow, right, you know, that was an amazing meeting. But at the time, of course, it's just you know, there's just another person. You've got no idea at the time of what can, you know, potentially lie ahead. So when did you see Chuck again? Presumably, did you give him your opinion on the demo, and what did you think to the demo when you heard it?
I was amazed. I mean, it was just so raw and heavy. I mean, it was recorded on a boombox in the garage.
Fuck me,
right? It was just heavy and raw, and just, you know, it was like Venom-esque kind of, you know, and that was killer. You know, I loved it, and the next time I saw him physically in person was a couple years later when me, Rick, and Bill left Massacre and hooked up with Death. Our first rehearsal, Chuck actually came out to Bill's house, and we talked and hung out, and we're like, let's give this a shot, because Chuck didn't have a band. You know, he recorded Scream Bloody Gore and then moved home from California. Chris Reifert stayed in California. So Chuck didn't have a band at that point, so we kind of joined forces.
Perfect scenario as well. Exactly what he was looking for.
Yeah, I mean, he never had a full band that could actually play shows and tour and stuff like that, and so we kind of solidified the lineup. And like a month later, we played our first show, like the Milwaukee Metal Fest, and we did a handful of shows to finish out 1987, and then in January of '88 we went on the Scream Bloody Gore tour in the States. And
how did that go?
That was great. we packed into a small van, not like the passenger vans these days. This was just like a tiny, small custom van, and we somehow crammed all of ourselves in there with guitars and T-shirts and luggage and amps and drums. We did like 15 or 17 shows up the East Coast and into Midwest, but it was great. Even though it was early '88, places were packed. People knew about the band, and they were just early days of death metal getting going, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it's I kind of know that feeling of traveling to like yet another place and thinking, well, I wonder if there'll be anyone here, and eventually you stop thinking that, because there always is. But in those early days, there's always that chance that it's like you're going to turn up and it's like, no one's bothered, no one's here.
Yeah. Even to this day, I get excited. The whole process of a show, getting to the show, loading in, getting into your backstage room, getting a sound check, getting your merch set up, waiting for the crowd to come in to see who all's in there. I just love that feeling.
I love driving past a venue and seeing a queue of people. People queuing to get in. That is like, that's fucking awesome. That really is. So those the one quote that there is on your Wikipedia page is that Chuck belatedly credited you with songwriting credits on Spiritual Healing. How was the how was the making of that album? I mean, well, let's go Leprosy first. Was Leprosy what was left over, or did you guys kind of work on that together?
No, that I think by the time Rick was fired, we maybe had like half of a song written, maybe, and then we started working on material. Me, Bill, and Chuck. And we realized we needed another guitar player, just for that double guitar attack. And a couple local people tried out. One dude was in the band for about 3 weeks. But I told him I knew a dude named James Murphy. He was a shredder. I had met him a few years earlier. And he did a tour with Agent Steel, and he was at that time in Hallows Eve. For about 3 months, and I had his phone number. So Chuck's like, well, if you got his phone number, let's call him. So Chuck called him up from his house right there in Orlando and said, hey, if you got a moment, why don't you come here and let's see how it works out. And so when James showed up, I mean, it was an instant fit, it was perfect. And we all started writing the songs. I mean, I helped write 4 songs. I think James helped write 4 songs. So it was a great time. It was a great feeling of all of us working together and creating that album.
Yeah, I mean, I've interviewed James at length actually, because we ended up talking about his brain tumor and everything. And I'm good friends, having toured back in the day for many weeks with Gene, with Dark Angel. I'm a good friend of Gene, and it's funny. It's funny speaking to everybody. There's everybody has their kind of the Chuck that they dealt with. It's kind of I mean, I know I know James wasn't happy the way things worked out there, and I guess neither were you either, because that after that album. I mean, that must have been a really sweet time working on it and all combining together to create that album. But by the sounds of it, it was pretty much downhill from the minute it came out.
Well, we did 2 tours in the States for Spiritual, and those were good tours. And then we did the tour in Europe without Chuck. But the last Spiritual tour, the one that was with Pestilence and Carcass. Yeah. The last week of that tour, I noticed a change in Chuck. He was different. He was distant. And which I imagine at that time he was already formulating. Because, see, we had 1 week off, and then we were going to go on tour with Creator in Europe. But I think in his mind he was running through all the scenarios. He didn't want to go. He didn't want to do the tour. Yeah. He was, I'm not sure exactly why, but he was just kind of getting discouraged a little bit with death metal at that point. And I think he was just thinking about a bunch of stuff. But, I don't know if he really seriously thought through the big undertaking it was to advertise that tour with Creator for like 4 months. You know, everything involved with it.
Yeah.
And all that. You know, I wish he would have done it, stuck it out for 9 weeks, and then figured something out after that. But what happened. And but you know, James did the first tour, and then he was out. Then he slipped into Obituary. You know, toured with them for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cancer too. You know.
Yeah, and it's yeah, it's kind of it's a weird old thing. The way members sort of came and went within the Death family, but then you hooked up with Rick again, and put Massacre together in pretty much like you know, double time. You weren't hanging around.
Yeah, well, it's funny is towards the end of that tour with Creator, I called Rick up from Belgium and was like, hey, this is what's going down. Let's let's get Massacre back together, and let's just record those old demo songs real quick, because everyone loved the demos, and those, you know, that songs were written in '86.
Yeah.
And record that, you know, those. So From Beyond was recorded pretty quickly after we got home. We signed a deal with Earache, and then we did a couple, you know, we did a tour for that, and then we put out that EP in Human Condition. I did another tour. We did 3 tours, 2 in the States, 2 in Europe, 1 in the States. They were great, good tours, amazing. I mean, we're talking 91, 92, right when death metal started really taking off. But Rick and Cam, you know, they wanted to be like Pantera, I guess, or something, and they kind of undermined everything, and Bill got discouraged, and he said, fuck it. So we kind of broke up. But little did we know, the behind the scenes, they were still going and put that and recorded that Promise record that Earache buried and didn't release it till like 96 or something.
Oh man, it's just yeah, bands, record labels. There's always just like such drama, isn't there?
Oh yeah, totally, and especially I don't think Earache liked the record because it was a totally different direction for Massacre, and it didn't sound like Massacre, and we were a pretty hot commodity at the time, and then that happened, and whatever. You know, I took about a year and a half off, and then 6 Feet Under started up, so I wasn't out of commission too long.
Well, no, you weren't, and that was a relentless kind of like return to the scene, because that was an album a year for 3 years, 95, 96, 97, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that was you must have been pretty much just on the road at that point for like 9-10 months a year.
Yeah, in the early days of 6 Feet, we toured a lot, which was great. I mean, you know, we did a lot of touring and built up a great following, good crowds. But then it just kind of fell apart towards the end, and the drummer and I quit at the same day. But I was in the band for 16 years. You know, we did a lot of good things, and you know, put out some good records.
Yeah, I don't know. I always feel like 6 Feet doesn't really get its credit where it's due in the scene. I mean, do you? Are you happy with the, you know, the legacy, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, the last few years of it kind of was like, you know, pulling teeth. But early on, I mean, you know, people thought, oh, you know, there's a guy from Death in the band, a guy from Cannibal Corpse, there's a guy from Obituary in the band. It's going to be like some, I don't know, you know, like Spiritual Healing meets, you know, Eaten Back to Life kind of, or something like that. But the whole thing we wanted to do would just be kind of dark and heavy and kind of groovy, you know. And, you know, Haunted is exactly what 6 Feet Under were. You know, that's what we wanted to be. And I think it's, you know, a great record. I think the first 3 records are great records.
Yeah, and to go from, I mean, from by this point, you know, you've now done Massacre, then Death, then Massacre again. You're in 6 Foot Under. Those years in 6 Feet must have repaired a lot of damage to you, sort of personally, because all of that fucking about can really get you down.
Yeah, you know, exactly. 6 feet was pretty stable for a long time, and that stability was cool. It was nice to have, you know. Death, every lineup of Death, every year of Death was very dramatic and turbulent. That's just the way it was.
Yeah.
You know, and the Massacre thing was short lived. So to get into 6 feet for a while like that, you know, it was a good thing.
Do you know what? I just had this image, and it's almost like, you know, you're this foster kid getting bounced from homes. Do you know what I mean? It's like Death, no, kicked out of right, oh, no, out of Death doesn't fit, right? Sorry, Massacre, then Death, then Massacre again. And it's just like, oh, you know, it's like, let's just have some stability somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
But I know what it feels like though as well, when you, especially when you're in a band where something like Death, where everything's going well, and at some point you realise that when things are going well, that's the time to start worrying, because something's going to go wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck to me was like a candle burning at both ends. I mean, it burns very bright and it's amazing, but at some point it kind of burns itself out a little bit. And you know, when I was in the band, obviously that candle was lit on both ends and burning very brightly. But along with that comes sometimes some decisions from the leader of the band that maybe aren't very good for the band. So you got to kind of deal with that too.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, except for that last tour, you know, I got along with Chuck great. We had a good time, me, him, and Bill. We used to go record shopping together. We'd spend the night together, watch horror movies together. I mean, it was a good time.
Do you know what? The funny thing is, Gene said exactly the same thing. He said, my entire time in Death was great, loved it, got on with Chuck, fine. And he said, but the last 2 weeks of the last tour that I did with him, horrendous.
Well, you know, Chuck just started, I don't know, not believing in James or not wanting to be around James for whatever reason. And it just kind of, you know, Chuck's the type that...
Sorry, no, I meant Gene. Gene as in Gene Hoglan, not as opposed to James. Gene,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, Gene.
Yeah,
okay.
He said he had the exact same experience as you, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it kind of just fell apart. But, you know, like I said, I don't know, he had something going on. People have talked about that the tumor started then. It was already going. That's why he was kind of erratic with his thinking sometimes. Hot and cold, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Who knows? But, you know, just fortunate enough that he, you know, gave me a chance to be in the band and allowed me to do what I did, and, you know, kind of helped kickstart my career, so to speak. So
yeah, absolutely, and kickstart a whole new fucking genre as well.
Yeah.
Did you ever, you know, once you ceased being in Death, did your paths ever cross again? Was there any kind of, like, you know, conversations further down the line, any kind of sort of reconciliation or anything like that?
Actually, no. There was a couple times we were on the same bill at a festival or something, and you know, I was still kind of, I wouldn't say bitter, but it just wasn't, the bridge hadn't been repaired, you know.
Yeah.
So I just kind of, I didn't want to pursue anything. Yeah. Obviously now I wish I would have, but I just, like, you know, I didn't go up to him and try and bury the hatchet, and I just, you know.
Did you
didn't do it.
Did you were you aware of him wanting to sort of bury the hatchet with you at all, or was it at that age it's very much a case of, well, like, you know, whoever's gonna make the first move, it's not going to be me?
Well, I think he would have been receptive to it, because, like I said, besides how it fell out at the very end, we were good friends and we got along great and had a lot in common. But you know, I'm kind of a shy dude, and I'm not a super life of the party outgoing dude. So that's probably why I didn't go over to him and start talking to him. But like I said, I wish I would have, but I didn't. So
Yeah, well,
something I got to kind of deal with,
but that's interesting that you say that. You know, you're a kind of shy dude, which will, you know, surprise some people listening. Does going out on stage, you know, still carry nerves for you, or is your sort of shyness more sort of on a sort of social one-to-one level?
Going on stage, I've never had an issue from day one because I just told myself, you know this music. You've practiced it. You can play it in your sleep. You know it. And you can play it. So getting on stage, there should be no difference. You know, you just get up there and play. I'm not worried about someone staring at me or looking at me. I don't care about that. But one-on-one and social circles and stuff like that, I'm not a social butterfly. It's weird. I just, you know, you got some people that can walk around and make friends with anybody, but I don't know. I'm just kind of reserved. But it's like once you know me and once I know you, it's a different story. But I'm definitely on the shy side.
And has that? Do you think sort of was being in a band ever about kind of, I don't know, sort of trying to not be shy, and it didn't work, or was it just, you know, was there any kind of aspect to that where you were like, you know, I wish I was more outgoing?
Well, yeah, I definitely wish I was more outgoing in that area as far as hanging out. You know, there was those dudes that knew everyone and they're the life of the party and all that. That just was never me. Even to this day, people are always like, do you ever talk? I'm like, yeah, I just like to listen and watch and stuff. So, you know, but had I been very open and talkative, I might not be where I'm at now. Who knows? So you can't mess with what's happened. So
yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, absolutely, yeah. I mean, you might have had a meeting with Chuck. You might have, your career could have gone off anyways. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny though, isn't it? That do you find that there's a kind of there's a part of your personality that you get to kind of sort of release on stage that you don't in normal life?
Yeah, I mean, you know, even though I'm playing in a death metal band, it's just that feeling that I'm not going to say you feel like a rock star, but when you get up there on stage, you're like, this is awesome. These 1,000 people are here to see my band play music that I helped write. They love it. They're singing the lyrics. It's just a great time. So you get this big rush, you know, it's a high. And I love that, you know. So that's one of the reasons I love playing shows is, you know, you get that feeling, and it's an awesome feeling. If it wasn't for those people out there, we wouldn't be on stage. So
yeah, it is an awesome buzz. And I mean, I've always struggled with kind of trying to generate any kind of buzz or enthusiasm for going in the studio. Don't get me wrong, you know, I love writing music and I love creating it, and then it's not always the funnest of times in the studio, although I had a brilliant time on our last album, which changed my mind completely. How do you kind of take it to the studio?
Well, the studio is definitely scary because you're under a microscope, you know.
Oh, and now more than ever.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, it's even to this day after recording a bunch of records, when you get into the studio, there's a slight bit of nervousness. It's not so much that you're not going to perform your part. It's just you want to make sure you got the right bass tone you want. And then sometimes you're playing along doing great, and you get into it, you forget, okay, hey, there's a change right there. So you got to stop. And back in the day, it was rewind the tape, but now it's just Pro Tools, which makes it so much easier. But, you know what I mean?
Dude, you are talking to somebody who does predate cut and paste and worked on tape. Oh yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'd tell you, on our third album, I was really struggling I was like a semitone out on a note, so we slowed the fucking tape down.
Yeah.
We just slowed it down ever so slightly. And then played it back, and you know what? Well, I was going to say, do you know what? No one knows, but it's a bit late now I've said that.
Yes. Working with Scott Burns back in the day, he was the master at slicing the tape, splicing, doing all kinds of stuff. Oh man, he was a master of that.
And
It always amazed me.
Did you all crowd round as well when you're doing a mix? Because it's like you'd need like fucking 10 hands to do a mix.
Oh yeah, we would all, even to this day, as much as we can, we would all be sitting in the studio, especially back in the day, listening to the mix.
I remember
putting your 2 cents worth in.
I remember back in the day as well, where it'd be like, you know, you'd have different parts in a song, and you'd need different levels at different times. So like, you know, so you like got 2 or 3 people on the desk. So as the song carries on, people are kind of like moving levels and sliders, because it's like, you know, this predates flying faders and all of that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know,
yeah.
I was like, we had a 16-track studio, which was about the size of like probably a very, very big family sideboard.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's just ridiculous. But yeah, like you said, you're really under the microscope now, though.
Oh, totally. It's like you're out there on an island totally all by yourself, and everyone's staring at you. It's like you're in an aquarium fish bowl, you know. But you know, that's just the nature of the beast there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, also everything is with Pro Tools, etc. Have you found kind of like obvious advantages of using it, or you know, where you can, do you just want to basically, you know, keep it as organic as possible?
Oh yeah, there are people out there, there's fans out there that, okay, play the rhythm once, okay, copy and paste it everywhere. We're not like that, you know. I play the song from front to back, and you know, what's great about Pro Tools is, okay, you're playing through the song, you hit a bad note, you just keep rolling, you just rewind and go back and redo that note, you know. So
yeah, back
in the day, you'd have to stop right there, you know. But now you can just roll right on through, and you just rewind it and plug it in, you know, just get that note in there, and you're in and out.
Yeah, I mean, and editing, drums-wise as well, that's made such a difference. Yeah. I mean, it's like, because our drummer is 20 years younger than the rest of us. So when he was learning stuff that's recorded in the like late 80s, early 90s, and he's going, but it's sped right up at the end, and it's like, yeah, because it was all done in one fucking take.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know.
You know, you're getting through it sometimes, and sometimes you're running out of time. You got to nail it. There might be no one's going to know that there's a difference, fluctuation in something, but you do, you know. But whatever, it just happens. It's like when we recorded Leprosy, we used drum triggering, which was like kind of a new technology at the time, slightly, especially for death metal. It was a new thing. And the producer we had really wanted to try it. And some of the drum fills Bill was doing, it wouldn't catch all the tom hits, you know. So when we recorded those songs, Bill had to kind of simplify some of the tom fills, you know, so it would catch all of them.
And
that's why it's funny to me. That's why it's funny these days when I hear people say, yeah, but it's just such simple drumming. Well, you don't know the whole story. You know, he couldn't do all the fills he wanted to do because of the technology, you know. So whatever.
Basically, the technology couldn't keep up with Bill.
Yeah.
Which is, I imagine, how he's telling that story.
Yeah, you know, practice room, it sounded, you know, drum patterns were a lot different, but you go in the studio, again, under the microscope, and the technology not working totally for you, because that technology, you know, let's face it, you know, probably made for bands like Def Leppard and shit like that, not for death metal bands, you know.
Well, it certainly explains the, let's call it, rather unique sort of sound on that album.
Yeah, I mean, the drums inherently are a little too loud, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
But that's just, at the time, we didn't think so.
Yeah.
But you listen to it now, you're like, okay, well, the drums are definitely in the mix. I wish the guitars may have been a little louder in spots here and there, but whatever. That's just the way it was back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you laid down spiritual healing, I mean, now, you know, by now you've kind of, you know, you've all worked that album together. Was it a fairly sort of routine job in the studio?
I mean, for like Bill, he already knew what was. We didn't sound replace the toms on that album. We just did the bass drums, so he didn't have to worry so much about that on that album.
Right.
Only the bass drums were sound replaced.
Yes.
Which it's still his. I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You hit the drum, you hit the bass drum 10 times. You pick the best sounding hit, and you sample that for every time. So it was still his drum sound, just consistent. Which he already was very consistent drummer, metering wise. And
but the thing is, like you said, people don't realize that like some of this technology has been around a lot longer than you think.
Yeah. Yep, definitely.
Well, look, Terry, look, thank you very much for your time. I have a few listener questions for you. If you could spare me a few more minutes, would that be okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. All right. Well, look, Terry, thank you very much. I really appreciate you giving up your time today. And for now, don't go anywhere. But for now, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that right there is the legendary Terry Butler. What an absolute privilege it was chatting. And he did go on to answer brilliant questions submitted by Patreon subscribers. If you'd like to become one of them and be able to submit questions yourself and also have your own podcast and get this podcast before everyone else gets it and loads of other extras, it is patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. $5 a month. That's I think it's $6 in total, including tax. Just over £5 in real money. And you get shed loads of content. Sign up for a month, download everything I've done for a couple of years, and then go again. It's entirely up to you, but there's lots of really cool stuff there. Just ask any patron, and they will tell you exactly the same. Really enjoyed that, and like I said, went on to do another 20 minutes of really insightful questions from patrons instead of my usual bullshit. It was really, really cool. So what else has been going on in metal? We have yet another Ozzy documentary, The 9 Lives of Ozzy Osbourne. Hey, you see what they've done there, eh? Cats, they have 9 lives. Ozzy, he's a little bit dangerous in here. He's a little bit of a rascal, hey? Is he going to put a dress on to go out because his wife has hidden all his clothes when he was an alcoholic? And we all laugh about that hilarious story when Ozzy Osbourne was such a fucking riddled alcoholic that he went out drinking in his wife's dress because she'd hidden all of his clothes. What a hilarious story about Ozzy's addiction that nearly killed him, eh? And that time he snorted ants. What a hilarious story. I mean, come on. We all know the Ozzy stories. The 9... Can there really be anyone out there, anyone who is even slightly fascinated by the fact that Ozzy Osbourne is still alive, or that he's had a slightly crazy life? Or, I don't know, maybe you might have heard, they might have heard, someone might have heard that once upon a time Ozzy bit the head off a bat. Yeah, that's right. So that will no doubt be an absolutely brilliant, insightful read, and it'll reveal loads of interesting stuff that none of us ever knew. No, it won't. You know why? Because Ozzy is an open book. His life is an open book, and it was even a fucking documentary for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. So they've even talked about bringing that back. Jesus Christ, please don't. So really, do we need another book on Ozzy's life? I don't really think we do. But, maybe we do. We need Ozzy's autobiography. What we don't need is yet another fucking book about Ozzy by somebody else. Certainly not fucking Sharon. Anyway, take this web address down. Go and visit this website. Do people really bother with websites anymore? Well, you're better with this one, because this one is called fistfulofmetal.co.uk. Yeah, that's one word. That's right. I don't know why I give it the old yeah there. That just fucking absolutely popped in there. That was really weird. That was almost like an out of body experience, hearing me go yeah, thinking, what the fuck was that about, Howard? You're gonna have to address that. That was fucking odd. And I can't remember what I was gonna fucking say now, because I've gone off on a fucking ADHD tangent and now I can't remember where I was. Jesus, right, I am actually genuinely going to have to... Oh, right, we were talking about Ozzy, weren't we? And I don't know, were we? Hang on a second. Fistful of Metal. Okay, the website is for a magazine, a new magazine coming this October. Yeah, from a reputable source as well. Now, you are going to be hearing all about this between now and October. I am going to be getting Miles Hackett. I nearly said Miles Kennedy. Definitely not Miles Kennedy. Miles Hackett on the show. He who is the label head of Dry Heave Records, who put out Acid Rain's return single on vinyl all those years ago. Thank you very much. We've also had Miles on the podcast. He's the man that was curating the noise back catalogue for BMG, and he is also involved in fistfulofmetal.co.uk, a new mag coming in October. Now, I'm sure you're going to be able to get hold of that, so wherever you are in the world, visit the site, and I will be giving you more information on that magazine as and when, and you will be getting a chance to hear from Miles himself before the magazine launches. So, without further ado, it is now time to announce the next interview, and that is with Whitney Moore. Now, Whitney interviewed me. Whitney interviewed me, or Whitney interviewed I? No, it's not I, is it? Whitney interviewed I. Whitney interviewed I for a magazine I. Sorry, I'm just a little bit confused. I managed to confuse myself there. Myself is probably what I should have said, not me or... Anyway, I was interviewed by Whitney for Tower Records, the LA Tower Records, the Tower Records, because all of our stuff was released... well, the back catalogue was released earlier this year for the first time in the States. So we did a really good chat. It's not for me to say, is it? But I really enjoyed it. Really cool. We got on really well. And I wanted to know a little bit more about Whitney. She's obviously in the rock and metal side of things, in working for Tower and in the general media sphere, and in the world of metal. So I just wanted to have a chat to her about, with that, I'm not going to say, about her experiences in the world of metal and rock up to now, what she's up to, what she does outside of music. And anyway, here it comes. I don't know why I'm telling you all of this, because you're going to hear it now. What's the point of even playing the interview if I'm going to tell you what happens in the interview? I am such a fucking idiot. Okay? Listen to Whitney. Don't listen to me. Just listen to Whitney. Now.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am very well. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, it's crazy over here. I'm excited to talk about it.
Wow, yeah, it's all a bit nuts, isn't it?
Yeah, it really, really is. It just keeps getting crazier.
And it's just, I mean, like, on top of, a pandemic for the first time in 100 years, you've now got riots and God knows what else going on.
It's crazy. Yes, I'm very happy to, it'll be very cathartic to talk about it today, because I've just been endlessly scrolling my Twitter feed lately.
Well, in which case, why don't I just give it the old "you go, girl"? get it off your chest. If it's inspired by Twitter, then I don't know. The world's human garbage seems to pile up on Twitter.
Yes, it's true. Okay, I'm ready.
So what's happened on Twitter? Where, like you said, you've been scrolling through. What's caught your eye?
Oh, I didn't know we were recording.
Oh shit! Sorry, no. Yeah, I do apologise. Yeah, I always do this.
Well, I'm sure the Black Lives Matter movement has extended through beyond just the United States, and I mean, I take actually a very optimistic standpoint, because obviously everybody is out of work because of the pandemic, and so I think everybody's eyes have just been glued to this, and every day there are more deaths, and every day there's something new to be mad about, and it's been invigorating to see people come together and unite in this way. And it's also a side effect is that people are really outing themselves in ways that I've never seen people tell on themselves before, because people's response to things it really, really shows where they're at. Like, the people who want to chime in on the conversation and say, well, actually all lives matter, or they only want to talk about looting when in fact we all received a $1,200 stimulus check to be expected for that to last for 4 months in a pandemic. And now people are mad about looting, I don't know, Walmart that makes billions and billions of dollars. Like, it's so backwards, and it's so crazy to see people just telling themselves like that.
Yeah, I mean, well, we've got the War Memorial whole thing has developed over here, where people are rocking up to protect them, the London mayor has actually kind of, I think, just covered up the Churchill statue completely.
Wow. Yeah.
So yeah, it's
to do this in a way if COVID weren't happening now, because everybody is already going crazy inside their houses, and then we see all of this shit going down, and how, you know, even in the middle of a pandemic, cops are still murdering Black people, and it's like, okay, enough's enough. And you see people risk their lives and go out in the streets and protest for it, and it's invigorating, but it's also like, we're really starting to see the seedy underbelly of how shit works out here, you know, especially with the LA chief of police. And, you know, Los Angeles has a really sordid history of police brutality against its citizens. And seeing, there was a Zoom call that was, you know, it was the day after the protests kind of started out here. And it was crazy to see how little they cared. They were so passive, and I think that they took like a tiny sliver off of the budget. But to see how it works from the top is something that I'm certainly only becoming really aware of. And you know, I've lived in Los Angeles coming on 10 years this August, and this is my first time really, really peeling back how things work and really seeing the way money is distributed and the way, you know, how cops are being paid and how it's just fucked from the very top.
Yeah, like from the inside, basically.
Yeah. I will tell you, since this is a rock and metal podcast, I recently started listening to a band that I hadn't really listened to. I was obsessed with them in high school, and that's Rage Against the Machine.
Right.
Never a more appropriate time. So funny. So on Twitter, that was one thing that I saw people, some people were reaching out to Tom Morello and were like, I don't understand why you're getting so political and why are you talking about all this? And he's like, did you listen to a single Rage Against the Machine lyric? Do you think that bulls on parade are just like literally about bulls at a parade? Is that what you think?
It was not about their time on holiday in Spain.
No, it's so funny, and man, I was obsessed with them in high school because the energy of that band, you know, with really without fully understanding the gravity of everything they were talking about when I was 15, I knew it really stirred something up inside me and kind of awakened me to counterculture stuff and looking at things another way. And I listened to them again a couple days ago, and I was like, man, it's very cathartic. It really captures the spirit of a revolution, and I'm really hoping that people keep going and real change is able to happen.
Well, it's not just you, because that's been reported as as like basically Rage Against the Machine. All of their stuff is like, all their streaming figures are through the roof, and it's like, seriously. The weird thing is, I thought you were going to be talking about that, but I read an article only today about how they are they're a voice of a generation, and that. People are streaming them like mad, and they're as popular now as they were in their heyday.
It's cool because they're a great band, obviously, but the fact that these messages are still so relevant and nothing has really changed that's depressing. But something that I'm really learning is that change isn't just going to happen. It's not going to be even a matter of just writing to your representatives like this is what we're seeing is a revolution, and I just hope it keeps up. And it's been so cool to see people share their protest tips. Have you seen that?
I have, and I've also seen some really, really cool footage as well. As I watched some footage this morning of protesters talking to people who were there to protect the monuments. And the protesters was like talking to this lady. So basically, you had this black dude with his bandana done up to his nose and a hood. So basically, you just see his eyes. Then you got this sort of white dude who looks like kind of round and in his sort of mid-50s and out of shape, and very white and red from suntan, and saying, well, and he's saying, well, look, we're just here to protect the monuments. We're just here to protect the monuments. And the guy from Black Lives Matter is saying, well, look, we're not here to mess with the monuments in any way. And in fact, if anybody starts messing them, we'll help you protect them. And you can see this bloke going, but that's just all we want to. Hang on, what did you say? and they end up agreeing. Shaking each other's hand, and it was just like really, you just think, oh god, I really need to see more of that right now.
It is nice to see some unity between people. Most of the white people that I've seen at these protests, we've been saying, look like a bowl of mashed potatoes that came to life, because they're just like, they're so sentient, and like they just look like a bunch of white carbohydrates.
Yeah, over here that's called the Wayne Rooney look, but that you probably don't. Yeah, it's kind of weird the way the way it's spread as well, and it's clearly become about. I mean, obviously it was started by George Floyd, but it's taken on, if it's possible, even larger consequences now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's George Floyd, and it's also every other. We got his killers arrested. One of them has already gotten off, but there have been more deaths since the protests even began. There were 2 lynchings that happened in California, which is a very blue state. Like it's pretty liberal out here, and 2 black men were found hanging from trees yesterday and the day before. It's absolutely insane. It's 1,000% because of Donald Trump inciting this disparity between people, and people feel emboldened to just be fucking racist. And man, it's crazy, because it really feels like, it feels like a season finale. It feels like we're leading up to a threshold, and something is going to give. And I'm just hoping it moves in the right direction.
Well, yeah. I mean, let's hope so. And when's the general election? When do you all go to the polls?
November. Although they've started in other states, and voter suppression has been. People have been like joking about how even if he doesn't win, they'll have to like forcibly remove Donald Trump from the White House.
I don't doubt that at all.
But I'm not even. I feel like it's not even going to get to that, because we already. In states where voting has started to happen, there's already so much voter suppression, and they're using COVID as a way to bypass write-in ballots. And we've seen time and time again that doing digital polls can be very easily corrupted. And so it's a big mess, and it's crazy, because it's so. I mean, speaking as an American, I was raised, and I don't think this will surprise you. We're raised absolutely indoctrinated into the America is number one, America is the best, blah blah blah. It's there from the very, very beginning, and that you're conditioned to believe this way, and you don't. In history, they don't teach you any of the bad things, and so it's been so crazy, in the last half of my life, to sort of wake up to that. I
couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm going to say this. I This is something I've never said on the podcast before. I lost my virginity to an American girl because we. Sorry, for some reason, twice.
Are you there?
Yeah, so twice people have tried to ring me tonight, and I've got no calls during the day, none.
That was some really wonderful comedic timing, because you said, "I've never said this on the podcast before," and then it cut out.
Well, I do apologise.
Okay.
So basically, yeah, I lost my virginity to an American girl. I've had to say that twice on air now. That's great. And what was weird was that I delivered that line, and then there was total silence, and I was like, "Oh my god, has she gone?" So anyway, there is a point to this. She was from an American base near from where I was brought up, and that was the first time that I'd spoken to somebody where it was like it was for real. The whole Pledge of Allegiance every morning, and all the rest of it. And that was just, that really is, for me, that's the thing that kind of that makes me go, whoa, right, okay, that's a bit weird. Because if you put Chinese people in those classes, or if you put, German kids in those classes, all of a sudden it takes on a completely different overtone. But apparently, it's okay for the largest country in the world to behave like this. It's just insane. It's
crazy. Did she sing the national anthem the whole time?
Oh, well, that's the other thing. We do. We have sport here too, but we don't find the need to remind people every time they go to an event which country it's in.
Yeah, it's crazy. And speaking again with like Black Lives Matter, did you see all of the hubbub from people taking a knee during the national anthem? That was a passive form of protest against police brutality in America against Black people, and people started boycotting the NFL. People started boycotting the sports brands that supported it, and the performers, the sports stars. I don't watch sports, but people started like boycotting all across just because people were taking a knee during the protest. I mean, think about that, which is literally the most passive thing that you could possibly do to have a statement, and how mad people were about that. No fucking wonder people are rioting now, because no one was listening. People were getting mad and like boycotting them back when it was just taking a knee.
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is, I remember that, and I also remember that it wasn't a massive deal initially, but Trump dug it up after a long time and said, basically, look, this isn't right. That we've got, this isn't right. This is, it's unconstitutional. It's anti-American, and he kind of had a go at the NFL, didn't he?
He did,
and then they've responded badly. And funnily enough, they're one of the few sporting organisations that I've seen who've actually reacted to this and been very good about it, and literally held their hands up and says, "Do you know what? We have got this wrong from day one."
Yeah, and it's so crazy and unthinkable how much this president wants our country to be divided, how much he wants to turn it in on itself. It's absolutely unthinkable, and in a way, it's kind of like, not to give him too much credit, but almost like, you remember the movie Fight Club?
Yes.
Almost like Tyler Durdening America, where like he is such a villain that it's getting people to talk about these things, because things have had to get so bad before anyone is able to be passionate enough to like try to change something. And so in a weird way, he's waking all of us up and, having us really look back at America's history and be like, oh, it's literally never been good if you're a person of color. America has never been great. It's literally founded on slavery. It's not anything to be proud of. And it's our jobs now that we're having these conversations to try to undo that and try to like save ourselves in some kind of way. Have you seen the movie Team America, World Police?
Oh, yeah.
We just rewatched it. It's up on Amazon, and man, that movie holds up. It is so good, and just such a perfect roast of American identity politics.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, the thing is, it was just, the fact it's made with puppets is hilarious. But yeah, I've got to say, it was one of those things that when I saw it, I couldn't quite believe what I was watching. It's very brave, very brave.
Yeah, dude, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, they're national treasures. They just last year we saw their book about being Mormon, their Broadway show, Mormon, the Book of Mormon. Yeah. It's not Mormon the musical. And are there Mormons in Europe? I realize that's probably just an American thing.
No, I've seen the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, I guess I've really, this is a thought I've never had before because, you know, obviously it's about how Jesus was American or something.
Oh,
or
it's
the Bible was found here, like fucking truly insane, like hyper nationalist shit. And so I have never comprehended the idea that Mormons might exist outside of the United States.
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It's incredible. I mean, you know, it's the basis of a religion. It barely holds water as the basis of one episode of a sitcom, frankly. But you know, and yeah, it won. It's on the West End here. It's been on. I mean, you know, it's always sold out, and it won Best New Musical the first year that when it debuted. In its debut year, it won Best New won the Laurence Olivier Award for Best New Musical.
I have to say, when I saw it, I was surprised because I was expecting the classic, you know, very dry Matt Stone and Trey Parker humor, but I wasn't expecting it to be a legitimately, like, beautifully performed show with really, really great songs. Man, I miss theater so much.
Oh, yeah,
I wonder when I'm going to be able to go see it again.
Don't get started on the what you miss, because then we'll just be here all night playing tennis with what we both miss. And it's like, I miss this.
Are things like slowly reopening where you are? Because just in Los Angeles, they've started reopening things, and absolutely no one is excited about it.
Yeah, well, basically, yeah. I mean, public transport, you have to wear a mask. Still, pubs, restaurants, things like that. None of that's open. None of that's looking like opening anytime soon.
They've started opening restaurants here, and gyms are going to start opening next week. And it's basically they're going to try to make things go back to how it used to be. But it's so obvious that it's just because they don't want to send out any more support. You know, there was one $1,200 check. Some people still haven't even gotten it, and that was 4 months ago. And they're like, okay, good luck. You better start opening, or else you're gonna be closed down.
You can't.
Good luck.
You can't do. You can't have gyms. You can't have gyms open. You can't have people sweating all over equipment and other people getting on that equipment.
Yeah, it's going to be a shit show. I'm going tomorrow up to the Bay Area where my family is, just to get out of Los Angeles for a little while, and then I'm going into the mountains in a cabin to just be alone for a while, and then I imagine I'll come back to a very different Los Angeles, much sicker version than it has been. So I'm excited to get out of the city for a little while.
So you're going all the way over to San Francisco?
San Francisco, it's about 45 minutes north of where my family lives.
Right.
And,
okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's where I grew up. I love the Bay Area. It's not quite as arts oriented. I moved down to LA a decade ago to pursue acting, and you know, there's San Francisco and the theater district, but it's so much tech now. It's all the tech industry, and even people who lived in San Francisco, you know, 10 years ago have been pushed out because now it's just all the apps live there. Yeah,
well, look, check you out, coming on a thrash metal podcast and then just dropping into the conversation casually that you're going to stay over in the Bay Area, and like that, almost instantly, we changed topic into music. Thank you very much, Whitney.
That's an amazing segue.
It is, exactly. That's why I'm making such a big deal of it. It deserves to be recognised. Yeah. It really does. When you said the Bay Area, I'm going to go see it, I was thinking, oh, bless you, girl. Thank you for that.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, we're obviously home to what would be my favourite genre of music, obviously. And obviously you are, you do have, you know, you said very kind things about our album. Thank you very much. And so you obviously have, like, you know, metal sensibilities. Did that help get your role with Tower? You know, how did that come about?
Yeah, so actually I've been working in the metal space for probably about 6 years. When I moved to Los Angeles initially, my first job was writing comic book reviews for a couple outlets because I love comics and video games, and I reached out to an outlet called Metal Sucks. and my now husband has always helped me shoot videos for YouTube, and we work really easily together. So I just pitched them a show, and I was like, hey, we both love metal. I would love to do a news show for you guys. And we started doing a show called That's So Metal, and it was just about things that were very metal that happened that week that were outside of the music industry. Like a man gets half eaten by a bear and then drives himself to the hospital, and, just like, things that you'd be like, oh, that's metal as fuck, dude. And we put way too much effort into it, and didn't get paid very much, but that's okay. Metal Sex is great. It's just like two dudes in Brooklyn doing their thing. And then we did a proper metal news show with them for about 2 years, and I got to go on tour and go to some metal festivals and do a lot of man on the street stuff, which I love because metal festivals and rock concerts always have the funniest drunk people who love being on camera.
Yeah,
they love they love goofing in front of the camera, and then that's when I met my boss now, Jeff Kurlitz. He used to actually work for Heavy Metal magazine, which I love. It's the perfect intersection of sci-fi and fantasy and comic books and horror and heavy metal, all that good stuff. And he left Heavy Metal magazine to go work for Tower, and he hit me up because they were supposed to relaunch at South by Southwest, and they had all these grand plans to interview musicians, but it kind of has worked out in a nice way because we've had the opportunity to interview so many great bands and so many metal bands that I like. He knows that's my favorite genre. So yeah, it's been really, really cool. It's been also just a nice thing to have as a gig during all this stuff because obviously, I'm not auditioning or shooting movies or anything.
Yeah, so wow, I mean that's a whole world of kind of information and stuff right there. That's like wow. So how long have you been married, and did you kind of what came first, work or romance?
We got married in September, and
congrats.
Thank you. It was the last real social thing that we did before the world fucking ended.
Yeah.
And we've been having a nice stay-at-home honeymoon because obviously he's not going into any offices anytime soon. But we had been good friends for a long time before we started dating, and then I think it was year 2 or 3. Because we actually worked at the same company in different departments. We both worked at Nerdist and a company called Geek and Sundry. And the first time we worked together was actually producing a show. We produced a show called Thrashtopia, which is a heavy metal scripted talk show about a girl who lives in an underground bunker during the apocalypse. And
right, okay.
It's all on YouTube, and we're so proud of it. And it's weird as fuck.
It sounds it.
Yeah, it's we had my friend Jason Charles Miller, who's also a metal musician. He plays my robot sidekick, Bunkerbot, and he actually did the music for the show. And he asked me, what kind of bands I like in terms of guitar sound, and obviously heavy metal is so varied in terms of its sound. So I sent him Skeleton Witch and Abath and Behemoth. That was a couple years ago before Behemoth started being an asshole to people online.
But well done. A career in politics beckons.
Yeah. He and then he did the whole soundtrack for the show, and it's metal that I would like. So little plug, Thrashtopia. It's all on YouTube, and if you like apocalypse stuff, it might be a little too close to home these days, but it's very, very funny. So that was our first time working together, and then we were like, oh, this is easy. We've got cameras, and these days all you really need is a camera and a laptop, just to throw things together in Final Cut or whatever. It's not hard to produce pretty good quality stuff.
No, well, it's the democratization through digitization.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, so basically everyone can make a film. You can make a film on your phone, can't you? But ultimately, Do you know what? I need to get you on my movie podcast as well. I've just realised.
Oh, I would love that. I actually, speaking of democratization and digitalization, I love that. I just put together a film festival, a quarantine film festival, and we premiered it on Friday night, and I loved it. And that was also speaking to how easy it is relatively to pick up these skills. There were a lot of people participating who had never edited before, who had never shown their singing before, and it was so cool. It made me feel connected in a way I haven't in a long time, seeing people tell stories again.
Yeah, I mean, things like that are important. I mean, I did a Zoom with a bunch of guys I used to play football with, and it was kind of like, it's about 12 of us, and it was so much fun. It genuinely felt like a night out because I was kind of buzzing afterwards. Do you know what I mean? Because I'd been socializing basically, and it's so long since I got a chance to do that. But I did a live. A kind of live spoken word for my Patreon supporters who support the podcast, and that was really cool as well, because it was just kind of it's probably as close as I'm going to get to performing for quite some time, and I need to perform.
Oh boy, you're preaching to the choir. Us extroverts and performers, we're having a bad time now.
Well done there.
Our energy from being around people. But you're right, and in a way we're kind of blessed to have this kind of technology accessible to us, because if we didn't have the internet, if we didn't have video conferencing, and Patreon is been a godsend to all of my creative friends, then we'd be in a very, very different boat.
We would, and I've got to say, I'm just fascinated by the accident of language that happened at the beginning of your what you were saying there, and the two words that came together were exhibitionism and performing.
Extrovert.
Yeah, being an extrovert and performing, and of course, if you put perform and extrovert together, what you get is pervert. So basically. It is quite perverse. Putting yourself through the stresses and strains of performance and throwing yourself out there to be shot at. But I guess, maybe that kind of works.
And the closer you are to it, the more perverse it seems. That is so correct, because I wanted to be an entertainer. I've wanted to act since I was a very, very small child, and only now am I able to say with full confidence that if I ever had kids, I would say absolutely do not pursue this. You have to be an extremely fucked up person to want to expose yourself to the criticism of thousands and thousands of people and get your feelings hurt on purpose and have just all of your emotions out on the table for everyone to see. Only an insane person does that.
Yeah, I mean, and also I'm always fascinated by interviews with actors. And it always seems to me that the ones who are kind of happiest are the ones who've learned that basically the audition is just the audition. You're either the right person or you're not. It's very rare that a good audition will get you the role.
It is. That's a thing that takes many, many years to learn, is to not get your hopes up about a gig, to not get your hopes up about something working out. I mean, at any given time, you can talk to someone in Los Angeles that has 3 things in the pipe. I have shows that I have signed on to who knows if they're going to happen. You really don't know if something is going to work or not, or even happen, unless all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted and you're shooting, and then even then something couldn't air. So it's just the feeling of impermanence and the feeling of just kind of going with the flow and letting the wind take you where it takes you is so necessary for survival in that kind of industry.
Yeah, without a doubt, because but also I think with acting there's also that and I wouldn't put you in this category because you're quite clearly not, but I think a lot of actors are basically very uncomfortable kind of people in themselves, and they revel in spending most of their time being other people.
Yeah, actors and comedians, and I know many that are both. It's really interesting to see how so many of them. I feel that I am actually in the smaller percentage of actors who are extroverts, because most actors I know are like very, very shy people. They really they like to do their work and they come alive that way. But it's at the end of the day, it's about telling a story, I guess. Hey, can I tell you about I'm releasing a short tomorrow that I did for this film festival. This is maybe better for your film podcast, but it does have a heavy metal soundtrack. So
no, go for it while we're here.
I for part of this ABC thing, basically the concept of the film festival was 26 people, each person gets a letter of the alphabet and has to make a short based on a word starting with that letter. And mine is about a woman who collects cum in a jar.
Okay.
And I don't want to give away the ending. That's the premise. But the music is my wonderful friend Josh Ethier laid down some really heavy tracks for it, and it's got if you're into doom metal at all, which is like probably one of my favorite subgenres of metal. It's very, very doomy, very tuned down, very big sounding, and it's about this woman who gets dumped because her boyfriend discovers she's been hoarding a semen in a jar.
She's a cum hoarder.
Yes.
It's happened to us all. So when does that, for want of a better worded question, when does that come out, and how can people get hold of it?
I will send it to you tomorrow.
Oh, cool.
For the whole festival, I didn't put credits in it, so we're just getting credits put on it today, and then it'll be online. So I'll make sure to send that out. It was really, really fun to make, and also I think I wouldn't have ever. I'm such a weird person, and I feel like I've only recently, maybe it's turning 30. I don't know what it is, but I feel like I've only recently really embraced how gross my brain is, and how I really like counterculture. I really like weird and gross things, and also it's so easy to make excuses to not create something, and I feel like that has been one little silver lining piece of pandemic related stuff, is that we've all had time to kind of slow down and think about what we really want to be and what we really want to contribute. And what I want to contribute is a cum movie.
Yeah, I mean that's that's going to look good on the IMDb page, isn't it?
Yeah, I just it takes a long time. I think to trust yourself as an artist, and I'm sure you can relate to this, and you have to really believe in yourself. And I think you make a lot of excuses for like, oh, I'll write that song later, or maybe you don't. I'm not a musician. I'm guessing, but definitely in the film industry, there's always like, oh, there's a story that I want to write, but I'll wait till something else happens, or I'll wait till I have the right opportunity to make something. And that was kind of my effort for putting together this film festival, was you don't have to wait to go and make something. It can be lo-fi, it can be no budget, as long as you tell a story. And it's so cool to see that you can just have that power.
Yeah, I mean that's really cool. Please make sure you get me all the various links.
I will.
And I'll watch before I share.
Yes, I will say it is. It's technically safe for work, but the implications are not.
Yeah, I don't think it's the kind of thing that you want to try and have to explain why you're watching.
It's true.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, look, Whitney, you'd be up for coming on the movie podcast then?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, look, I'm going to let's put a pin in it there, and I'm going to give you a shout. And let's arrange some dates. You're obviously quite busy at the moment. Well, you always seem to be busy. So let's try and set up another time, and we'll get you on the film podcast as well.
I would love that.
Cool.
Can I tell you some bands that I've been listening to?
You certainly can.
So it's very hot in Los Angeles, and I don't know about you, but definitely in terms of the metal that I listen to, it changes with the seasons. And so when it's cold outside, it's all black metal and death metal. But when it gets hot outside, Iron Maiden, baby, that is the number one. And Acid Rain too is actually such a great addition to that rotation, like just fun classic metal.
Well, thank you very much.
And then when it's super, super hot outside, you have to listen to the slow, syrupy doom metal, like Sleep and Electric Wizard and Bong Ripper and all of those, like, and Bell Witch, like all of those just like sludgy, slow bands, because that's how you feel on the inside. That's my weather predicting metal playlist.
Now that's really interesting because personally, for me, when it's sunny, my go-to album is Eat 'Em and Smile by David Lee Roth. Purely because that album sounds like sunshine.
Yes, yeah, it's true. I think there are two attitudes when it's summertime, especially in Los Angeles. It's like, this is fun. I'm out driving, and the wind's in my hair, and certainly metal like that is perfectly suited for that. And then there's the other side, which is like, I am a lizard on a rock. Do not touch me. I am not moving for the rest of the day. Please bring me water. And that's when the doom metal comes in.
Yeah, I can completely get on board with that. I mean, I've got to be honest. Doom metal is just not. It's just not for me. I like it.
It's interesting because I feel like it's pretty polarizing, doom metal, because it's either. I mean, it makes sense that somebody who is a big thrash fan. Doom metal is kind of the opposite of it because it's so slow and it's just like droning, and I feel like if you love thrash metal, then you might find it boring.
To be honest, you should probably not listen to a word I say, because when you started speaking, I realised that in 2019, one of my top 5 albums of the year was Candlemass, The Door to Doom. So just forget I said anything. Just forget I said anything. I mean, have you found as a woman, have you found the metal the metal community embracing, and has it always behaved itself?
Fuck no.
Oh, there you go.
No. What's so funny though is I used to work at a comic book store when I was 15, and I would get boys come up to me. I was behind the counter, and they'd say, "Can I get somebody who works here or like who actually reads comic books?" And that was back before all of the major comic book movies really started. I think Iron Man was out, but like they weren't as part of the zeitgeist as they are now. And so comic books, video games, and certainly heavy metal have all been incredibly gatekept towards women. Obviously, the gaming and sort of pop culture landscape is a lot more inclusive and a lot more accepting these days. But metal protects itself. Metal, it tries to stay underground. Metal tries to weed out the posers. And I think in terms of going to shows and in terms of actually being in the community, it's wonderful people. It's only, nice people, because once you're at a show, everybody's just there to enjoy the music. It's the great equalizer, everybody's just there for the music. But as a performer in the metal space, doing news and doing the show that we did, that is when you're inviting all of the negative YouTube comments. You're inviting the objectification, the nasty comments. And I think that is just also a symptom of making something and putting it out there. It will always invite criticism and in my case, sexism. But yeah, definitely online it was not so good. But in person is always great. It's always when you're there at concerts with people, you see people of all kinds.
And that's a really important line to draw there, because I think the difference between that online bullshit and the real lived experience. I mean, let's face it, any kind of social media, whether it's from fucking YouTube across the board to Facebook, it doesn't represent real life. I mean, there's way more arguments and shit going on and stupid stuff being said on social media than there is when you get out your house and walk around and meet people and get on with life.
1,000%.
Yeah, exactly.
And people aren't hiding behind the mask of anonymity. And to Metal Sucks' credit, they I was not the single person getting. I was not getting singled out with criticism there. They are constantly having to fend off jerks, because I feel like Metal Sucks is definitely a more liberal outlet, and they will be some of the first people to call out if a black metal musician has accidentally outed themselves as a Nazi. And so, they report on all that stuff, and so they kind of invite that criticism from the pocket of metal enthusiasts who are white supremacists.
Yeah, and unfortunately there is some of them around, unfortunately.
Yeah, it really sucks, because I always want more people to listen to metal. I'm one of those fans that, like, I don't want it to stay underground, even though I love the counterculture of it all, but I want more people to listen to metal, and it sucks that it gets a bad rap because of a couple fucking Nazis.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, look, let's bring things to an end there, Whitney. It's been awesome talking to you. Thank you very much for your flexibility with sorting these dates out. I've really appreciated it.
Yes, thank you, Howard. Sorry, I just kind of word vomited at the beginning. I was ready to go off.
No, not at all. Look,
right
please don't. People listening to this will be like, "No way, man, that was great. We've just, we were loving listening to that." Besides, they've had enough of listening to me, so listening to somebody else, that's what this is all about. But look, stay in touch. It's been really cool talking to you, and I'll get you on the movie podcast. Now, when this short movie comes out, how can people see it?
I will. I'll post the link up on my social, Whitney S. Moore on Instagram. I'll post it, and then I'll also just send you the link, and you can share it with your fans if you'd like. It's
cool.
Certainly, if you like strange things, it's a strange thing.
Less said the better, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I think we've said all there is to on that. Well, look, once again, Whitney, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Howard. It's
Cheers.
Great to talk to you, and I'll catch you on the next one.
Cool. Lovely.
All right. Bye-bye.
And that was Whitney Moore. Really enjoyed chatting with Whitney. Do check out her movies. That is a rather strange... what's the fucking word? Setup. Yes, premise. That's the word I was looking for. So I will be getting Whitney back on. Certainly going to get her on a movie podcast as well. A lovely lady who, like I said, I really, really enjoyed talking to. She's got her fingers in so many pies, doing so many different things, and really worth following on social media as well, and keeping an eye on her stuff. So. I mentioned movies there, and yes, there is a movie podcast coming out pretty much once a month at the moment, movie podcast. So I'm going to do what I rarely do, and I'm just going to flag up the movie podcast for this month, because what's going to be coming is an interview with a friend of mine called Philip Jackson. Now, you may well know Phil from the TV show Poirot, who plays, I think it's Chief Inspector Yap, or Jap, or however what you want to pronounce it. In Poirot. So I'm some of you may well. He's been in loads of stuff. As you'll find out, we had a really great in-depth chat. Fellow Leeds fan, known him a long time, and that's coming up this month. So do have a listen. We talk about all sorts. Working with Michael Caine, meeting Pele, all the typical normal working with Mike Lee, sort of typical actory stuff. But it's really cool, really enjoyed it. So keep an ear out for that, and keep an ear out for Miles Kennedy coming up. There is still the Sepultura. The special is not in the works; it's done. It's just waiting. I'm just coordinating with Sepultura as to when to put it out. So that is going to be coming at some point in the future. Got all sorts of really cool interviews lined up behind the scenes. Now, one thing I would like you all to do is, if you could check out Acid Rain's social media, you will see that we have our bass player Pete, who is basically he's putting money. He's raising money. And he's raising money for Mind, because unfortunately that is Bloodstock's charity, and we're not able to do Bloodstock this year, obviously. But Pete is raising money, and he's doing that. He's doing that by, get it? He's doing it by shaving his beard off. That is right. Pete, the Acid Rain bass player, is shaving his fucking beard off. This is like unheard of. So he's looking to raise $2,000 in the next couple of weeks. So if you could all start putting some money into his fund, that would be fucking awesome. It's justgiving.com. If you look up Pete D1, that is Pete, P-E-T-E, D, the letter D, followed by double E, all one word, Pete D, and then the digit 1, Pete D1. He's on Just Giving. He wants to get $2,000 together, and then he's going to shave his beard off live on Saturday, August the 15th, on Acid Rain's Facebook page. So, if you want to see that, tune in. And if you want to make it happen, donate some money. It's all for a good cause. It's all for Mind. And Pete's had that beard for fucking ever. I was going to say ever since I've known him, but that pretty much goes for everybody. Everybody's no matter how long they've known Pete, have always known the fact that he's got a beard. So there you go. Just a little bit of an Acid Rain tangent there. But it's a really worthwhile cause. Please do give to it. Now, finally, before I finish, already plugged Patreon, already plugged Pete. I want to plug the new, I never thought I'd say this, new Lamb of God album. I am really, really digging it. Lamb of God by Lamb of God is absolutely, it's smashing me at the moment. I'm really, really enjoying it. And I never thought I'd say that about a Lamb of God album. I really didn't. But also, needless to say that, well, no, it does need saying. Protest the Hero is absolutely smashing it for me at the moment. What an album. It is just, it's just absolute fucking genius. It is called Palimpsest, if you want to go and have a look for it. And I think it's absolutely phenomenal. But I would, because I like the band anyway. But I wanted to give you, like, you know, a heads up on two really cool metal albums that I'm digging at the moment, and that's it. Now, please, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, bollockers, first timers, everyone listening, please do spread the word. If you like what you've heard, spread the word. If you don't like what you've heard, fuck off and never come back again, you cunt. There you go. Finally. So yeah, please spread the word, and we'll get it out there, and I can make more of these, interview more people, talk more shit down your fucking lug holes, and it'll be great. I mean, look, are you guys doing okay out there? Are you doing okay out there in lockdown? How you dealing with the new normal, eh? Because it's not normal, is it? Everything's not normal. Stuff is definitely different. I mean, just people's vibe. I was talking earlier about the nature. I mean, that's just, you know, literally, nature is different. Everything is different. I'm different, without a doubt. I'm having to adjust to a future that I really had no plan for. I mean, for any of you out there struggling financially at the moment, boy, I know how you fucking feel. I am literally sat here spending my savings that hopefully we're going to be, you know, we're going to go towards a major purchase in life, you know. But as it is, no, I'm just going to fritter them away on food and bills. Very little help from the government. Well, I can't actually get any help at the moment, other than that 3-month payout that we had earlier, which was shit. I can't get any help from the government other than that, because I've got too many savings. I'm revealing like way too much here, but fuck it, I don't care. So because I have because they have savings thresholds. I say they, I mean, you know, the government. So at the moment, I've got virtually no money coming in. Now, Patreon is my only income at the moment. So thanks again to patrons. And look, fuck it. If you'd like to make a contribution to the podcast, all you need to do is send some money to howoneard@hotmail.com. So if you've got a PayPal account or whatever, ping a little bit of money, a quid, whatever you can spare. Jesus, I am doing online begging now, aren't I? To howonard, that's HOW, then the digit 1 ARD, howonard at hotmail.com. If you ping some money to that, because not everybody wants to be a patron, but they still want to support the show. And I know of at least one person that applies to, and you know who you are, don't you? So I thought I'd just put it out there, and I'm sorry if it makes you feel a bit uncomfortable. Believe you me, you're not the only one right now who's uncomfortable with all of this. But yeah, and look, I'm just saying that because I've managed to put money away here and there during my life, and I'm really, really, really not well off. But because I have managed to do that, unfortunately, my savings are at a threshold that is above where I can get any help from the government whatsoever. So literally, because I have been prudent financially and sensible and it basically means I get no help. So I've just got to piss that money away until it gets to a stage, until it gets to, down to an amount that is considered that I'll then get some help. But anyway, look, I'm fucking moaning or not. What I'm saying is, if you're out there and you're struggling financially, mentally, whatever it is, I absolutely get it. I really, really do. Don't think that I'm any different to you guys. Yes, I'm trying to be as positive and bounce abouty and as normal as possible on these podcasts, because that's what that's the purpose of them. It's something for me to enjoy. I mean, this is as close as I'm getting to fucking performing. I have not had this long off a stage for 12, 13 years. So this is tough. It really is. I'm actually doing a monthly Zoom chat with all my patrons as well. So if you do want to join Patreon, it's basically like a live podcast once a month, and we all just get together, have a beer and a chat. So yeah, I mean, whatever. But you see, look, there I am. I'm plugging that as well, because it is literally plug. Because yeah. Look, we're all in this together at various degrees of shittiness. We are all in this together. Even you cunts who don't want to wear masks. And let me just point this out. Whatever you say about not wearing a mask starts with me, I. Well, it ain't about you. You have the right to not wear a mask. No, you don't. The law says you have to wear a mask, so wear a fucking mask. Secondly, if you believe you have the right to not wear a mask, then walk around and don't wear a mask. But just remember, if you catch COVID-19, you will have that disease for 48 hours without noticing it, without displaying symptoms. During those 48 hours, you will give the disease to all of your friends and all of your family members and loved ones. If you really think that you are that, do you want to be that cunt? Do you want to be that cunt? Do you want to be the guy who has to turn around, or girl, or man, or woman, or non-binary living creature? There we go, just cover the fucking lot, right? All of you out there, all of you. Do you want to be that cunt? Do you want to be the person that has to turn around to their friends and their family and say, it turns out it was me. Yeah. You remember that fucking stupid, ludicrous stand that I took for no reason in particular? And don't make out like it is some big stand and you're taking it for some fucking reason, because you're not. Yeah. You're just basically making everything about you, making it stand because you believe this and you believe that. You, I, me. Yeah, well, that is not what this is about. This is about everybody else. This is about people other than you. So there you go. I mean, really? So anyway, the point I'm making is, guys, if there is a point to this, I'm not sure there is. But I just wanted to say, look, we're all out, we're all in this together. We really are. And if I can help in any way, if it's just listening to these podcasts and stuff like that, then I'm glad to have helped. We're live on the Acid Rain Facebook page every Saturday if you want to come and join there. And in all seriousness, if you do want to have a talk about anything, you're down, depressed, you just want to get something off your chest, feel free. You can get hold of me on Facebook. on Twitter, just, on social media in general. If you want to have a chat, absolutely feel free. And I do mean that, guys. I really do. I've had my various struggles over the years with mental health, as you all know, and I'm more than happy to have a chat with anybody who is struggling right now, and share the burden. Because let's face it, to a certain extent, no matter who you are, to a certain extent, we are all struggling that little bit. So anyway, look, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It is a privilege talking to you, and I really hope that I'm able to see you all in the flesh at some point over the next 12 months, whether it's doing live podcasts or playing with Acid Rain. So hang in there, guys. Lovely to talk to you. I'm going to keep the podcast coming. Movie Bollocks coming very soon. Make sure you check that out, because that is a really cool interview. Really enjoyed it. Some real great behind the scenes stuff. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, come back for more. If you didn't, you're a cunt. Fuck off. Never want to hear from you again. Thanks a lot, guys. Speak to you soon.